Eagle Nation, what is up? Welcome on into A to Z Philly post-game live. The Philadelphia Eagles take down the Chicago Bears. They pull away in the fourth quarter, even though it was still a little bit scary at the end. It came a little too close for comfort, but Jalen Hurts plays a significantly better second half, and the Eagles roll to 13-1. And now the Cowboys just lost moments ago. And, obviously a couple other teams are still battling right now, but the Philadelphia Eagles are sitting a lot prettier at the current moment. What a game. It feels good to ultimately get a win on any Sunday in the NFL. Once again, welcome on in, RB here. We will be breaking down how the Eagles got back on track and finished it off against the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about the good, the bad, everything in between. As always, chime in the chat. Let me know your thoughts on this game and on this second half specifically. Shout out to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to hit that like button wherever you are watching and subscribe to the YouTube channel A to Z Philly. Welcome in on everybody. Jalen Hurts, even though he had a pretty bad first half, we'll talk about the play calling and all of that stuff. Everything given, Jalen Hurts comes in this game and he finishes with 315 yards, no touchdowns in the air, 2 interceptions. It looks bad at first glance, but how about 3 rushing touchdowns out of Jalen Hurts, the leading MVP candidate? He puts this team on his back and he rolls down there in the third quarter and he hits a couple big ones to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. He finds ways to make it happen. The Eagles were not utilizing their running game with Miles Sanders. They really never got it going, but Jalen Hurts made some special plays in this one. And, a couple sneaks there to punch it in, and the Eagles end up scoring. And ultimately, they hold the Chicago Bears. Even though the Bears did score on their last drive, making it a 5-point game, the Eagles get a first down on a 3rd and 6. They hit A.J. Brown, and they never looked back. And the Philadelphia Eagles now sit at 13-1. We can complain. We can talk about this team and criticize it and kind of improve on certain things. At the end of the day, guys, we are 13-1. At the beginning of the season, did anybody in their right mind ever think we would be sitting here at 13-1? It's special, man. It is special. This team is special. Again, lots to work on moving forward, and a lot you can take away from today. The thing that I will take away mostly from this game, it felt like one of those games that every good team has. You struggle, maybe a trap game on the road, tough environment, like it's cold, it's frigid outside. And, it's just one of those games you have to battle, right? And Justin Fields had a pretty good game. He ended up leaving with 7 minutes to go. Nathan Peterman came in, and at that point, they just didn't have any shot. They did not have any shot. There were a couple drives I was worried about. Jake Elliott ends up missing a field goal. I think that was early in the fourth quarter. And, I'm sitting there thinking, all right, now it's still a 4-point game. Eagles need to make a stop. Eagles need to make a stop. Their defense today completely picked up the offense. And, man, I mean, it was huge. The Eagles are nearing 3 or 4 players with 10 sacks on the season. I think they had 3 guys today who had 2 sacks. That was in the third quarter. And we just continued to bang up Justin Fields all day. We finished with 6 sacks, but we had a lot more quarterback hits than that. We had a lot more quarterback hits. We had Josh Sweat with 2 sacks. We had Hassan Reddick with 2 sacks. We had Hargrave with 2 sacks. We had all these guys in there. Even Avonte Maddox, huge hit on Montgomery, punches it out, and Hassan Reddick picks it up. This defense came in clutch today for the Philadelphia Eagles time and time again. You give these Bears little momentum drives. You give them little momentum things to hold on to, right? They're staying in the game. They're staying in the game. But when it came down to it, man, the Eagles made the bigger plays, and they do get it done here today in Chicago. And now you're on to Dallas. Like I said, Dallas just lost in overtime against the Jags. Dak Prescott throwing a game-losing pick 6. And the Philadelphia Eagles trying to go in there next week and get it done. 1 win away from clinching the number 1 seed. Can the Eagles do it in Dallas? Man, it would taste so sweet to do that and lock it up next week. Let's get the chat involved here. How is everybody feeling after today's game? Are we more calm and less concerned now after the second half? Are we still worried based on what we saw today? Let's gauge the chat and the people up in here. Let's read some of the comments. We have Johnny here says, "Fly, Eagles, fly." We have Jorge in the house. What's going on? What's one word, guys, to describe the W? What's one word to describe this W? I feel like we could get a lot of answers on both sides of the spectrum there, if I'm being completely honest, because there's still things we need to talk about and critique because it was not perfect by any means. I will say a lot of good teams have games like this where they have to scratch one out. For example, the Kansas City Chiefs right now are battling the Texans in overtime. I mean, every team does have games like this. I'm just glad we came out on the right side of it. We have Arthur in here says, love my Eagles. Donnie in here making fun of them, of the Cowboys. I love it. David says, grit. I love it. Jay says, Fields scared me a bit, but Hurts came through for the team. And it just shows the progression and growth of Jalen Hurts. You know, a guy like Jalen Hurts last year might not win this football game, but you can just see the maturity level increase. You know, the Eagles kind of got back to playing their game. I'm not going to say they did that fully. You know, they were not able to establish the run game, keep it a balanced attack throughout the third and fourth quarter. But Jalen Hurts made some big, big throws there. You know, the one down the sideline to Devontae, the one to AJ. I mean, they were some great, plays, great designs, but Hurts had to float it right in there, and he did. And the Eagles get it done, man. It was huge. It was huge. We have Linda in here who says, fly Eagles, fly. John says, that is so awesome. William says, it was ugly, but I will take the win. Let's see. Dave says, defense. We have Moselle in here. Kathy says, winning. I love it. Winning at the end of the day cures all, right, guys? Winning cures all. And the Philadelphia Eagles were able to get this one through, and at least we got the W. That's the most important thing. Tan says, feel good, but we could have done better. Henry says, wow. Catherine says, this was a crazy game. It was really filled with a lot of emotions. Honestly, I'm going to say that I never felt the game was out of reach for Chicago. You know, even in the third, even in the fourth, a lot of weird things happened. You know, the missed field goal, the Eagles go for it on 4th and 6, which I would love to know the decision making behind that. Was it fully analytical based? You know, I think it would have been like a 51, 52 yarder. Jake Elliott ended up missing a shorter field goal, but you know, they decided not to kick and they went for it. And you know, it really was a basic route. It was like a slant route to AJ Brown, and it just did not work. And it's simply put, I mean, there was not much creativity on it. And that's something to look forward, you know, in terms of planning for this team going forward, right? Like against better teams. Are we going to be a team that a majority of the time goes for it on 4th down? It seems like we have been that. So we'll have to wait and see. But Gregory says team win. Tan says credit to Doug P. I love Doug, man. Shout out to Doug Peterson helping out the Philadelphia Eagles once again. I know that feels sweet for him getting that W. Eric says lot of heart. Margaret says unbelievable. Kathy, Jalen Hurts, awesome. Drew says Sirianni needs to run the ball with our running backs, not an option every single time. I agree with that. I agree. Alice, what's going on? We got Rashid up in here. People seem to be pretty high after this win, as they should be. The Eagles end up scratching this one out, but there are things that really concern me in this game. I will say this game did make me a bit nervous. Again, I give the Eagles defense credit for getting it done, but some of these situational things, you know, I felt like the game plan coming into this one was let's go out here and try to blow them away early in the game. That's what I felt the game plan was. The problem is we got way too predictable. We got way too predictable. We look at Miles Sanders, who finishes the game with 11 carries, but let's be honest with ourselves. Miles had about 3 to 5 carries, you know, going into when it really mattered. Miles Sanders was not able to get going, and then they finally try to feed him, and he has a crucial fumble on our own 20, leads to Chicago points. That just cannot happen from Miles Sanders. And like I said, there were just a lot of weird things. The Eagles had a 19-play drive going into that fourth quarter. It ended up being like 9 minutes for the drive total. And that was when Jake Elliott missed the field goal. How do you go on a 19-play drive and not account for any points? Like that just usually does not happen. And then obviously, like I said, the Justin Fields injury and Chicago just had nothing left. Justin Fields was their chance to win this game. And I'll give the kid credit, you know, 152 yards in the air, but he had 95 on the ground. He hit 1,000 for the season. He did everything he could to keep that team in the game. They just did not have enough weapons. But how about that throw, guys? Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown. That was probably my favorite play of the game, which ended up sealing it for the winning, you know, points, the winning drive. Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown, 68 yards all the way down to the 4-yard line. That was huge. And I've just been so impressed with the growth from Jalen Hurts being able to hit that deep ball. That's not something he was able to consistently do last year. And I've just noticed how much I guess it's his mechanics, but also, his confidence and willingness to throw it down the field. I just think Jalen Hurts has transformed into this next level quarterback. Again, it wasn't perfect today, and a lot of great quarterbacks have games where, they struggle in a quarter, or they struggle in the first half. How do you rebound from that? How do you get your mindset going? And especially when your run game is giving you absolutely nothing, your offensive line wasn't really polished for most of the day. You come out here and win games. You make big plays. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown were monstrous today. We didn't get Dallas Goedert back as we had expected, but how about A.J. Brown with a career high 181 yards in the receiving game, 9 catches. And then you add on 5 catches from Devontae Smith, 126 yards. His longest of the day was 45. So the longest one to AJ was 68 yards. The longest one to Devontae was 45 yards. Jalen's having fun out here with these weapons, man. Jalen Hurts is having fun out here. He's got a plethora of weapons to play with. And then when you add Dallas Goedert back into the mix and you get a normal game out of Sanders, like we've been saying, I mean, this team is almost unstoppable on the offensive side. And yeah, the offense stepped it up later in this game. I still am not happy with the total strategy from the offensive side of it. I thought they could have mixed in the run better. I thought Sanders didn't get a rhythm, and you try to feed it to him and he ends up fumbling, which is his fault, of course, but you have to get it going early in the game because against better teams, we're playing the Bears who lost 6 in a row. You go up against better teams and they will make you pay for some of these mistakes. Usually you don't win a game when you turn the ball over, 3-4 times? What did we have? 3 turnovers in this game. We had a fumble. We had 2 interceptions. Usually you do not win when you're turning the ball over 3 or more times. And the Eagles ended up pulling through here. And, they just have to correct this and move on. Shane Steichen knows what he's doing as an offensive coordinator. He's been dominant all year. For the most part, he has adapted to whatever team we're playing and attacked them the right way. But I just felt today, we were trying to gain too much yardage. We were trying all the big plays early on instead of building that flow, instead of building that rhythm within the offense, and just making them pay. They knew what to expect in this game. And, the Philadelphia Eagles just did not do a good job at keeping it paced. That's my opinion on it. But I do think they will get it corrected. Sometimes when you're playing a bad team, you want to take advantage of them early on, but you can't come out of your character as a team. Here's how you dominated all season. You ran the ball with Miles Sanders and, mixed in the pass plays early on. You really just kept every defense so far off balance. Jalen Hurts can run it sometimes, a couple design runs, a couple RPOs. Jalen Hurts tucks it and runs. That's how you keep the defense off balance. But in the entire first half, they knew throw. Miles Sanders didn't even touch the ball until the second half of the second quarter. So that is something that must be communicated. Nick Sirianni was asked at halftime. He said, I did not like how we didn't incorporate the run. Well, you are the head coach. You need to communicate this with your offensive coordinator and get things on track. But nonetheless, Jalen Hurts made some huge plays in the second half, and the Eagles get it done. I'm actually really impressed with the defense. Again, I know you're going up against a bad offensive line, a putrid offensive line, if we're being honest, and they were banged up. They lost another guy early in the game. But you know what, man? Even generating pass rush like that with 4 guys, I mean, that's impressive. You look at the Eagles' defensive line, they have so much talent. If I heard correctly, the Eagles' defense is now nearing, 4 guys with 10 sacks. I don't think any team has ever had 3 guys with 10 sacks in a season. Hargrave hit it today. Reddick already hit it. And now you have Josh Sweat and maybe Brandon Graham creeping up there, and maybe even Fletcher Cox. Could you imagine 4 or 5 players on this defensive front, getting 10 sacks this year? The Eagles already lead the league in sacks, and they just keep adding on to it. They had 49 coming into the day. They now have 55 on the season. It has been huge, man. And, you kept Justin Fields contained. I know he had a couple big runs, and that's why, it looks bad on the stat sheet, 95 rushing yards. He had a couple big runs. He had the one there in the second half where Hassan Reddick tried to grab him. He actually got held. and Justin Fields ended up breaking away. It was called back, and then there was the penalty. But other than that, I mean, he had that big one in the first half that looked really bad, but that accounted for a lot of his rushing yards. I thought the Eagles did a pretty decent job at showing him some different things. Um, and staying on these receivers who obviously are nothing special. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good performance by the defense overall. I mean, you look at the Chicago Bears, other than Justin Fields, their leading rusher was David Montgomery with, 53 yards. That's what he averages about a game. And the receivers didn't do much at all. So it was literally Justin Fields versus the Eagles. And when Justin Fields went out, it was pretty much over. Even though, ended up coming back and, they throw that touchdown near the end of the game and you're still biting your nails and wondering if the Eagles can get this done. But I was happy with the way that we were able to win this game and move to 13-1. Not a lot of teams have started a season 13-1, and it is a special feeling. We have Speedy Mac in the chat, says it wasn't a pretty sight, but we did win the game, and a win is a win. I like that. Michael says, this team makes me nervous, but exciting. Isaac says, we are beating teams we should, and what's better, we aren't losing to teams we shouldn't be. A win is a win, and a Cowboys loss and our Eagles win. Yeah, Cowboys lose, Eagles win. If you guys are just tuning in, by the way, hit the like button. Thank you for being here. I was just watching the end of the Cowboys game. Dak Prescott throws a pick six, and the Jaguars win it in overtime. It's just insane to me. And I was watching the Vikings game yesterday, and they had that historic comeback. But let's be honest, the Vikings were down 33-0 to the Indianapolis Colts. I look at Dallas, who lost this game. Yes, they're going to be an interesting matchup, and of course, there's going to be a lot of bad blood. There's going to be a lot of intensity with that game. But Dallas almost lost to a one-win team last week. And they just lost to the Jaguars, who I'm not going to say they're a bad team, but they're certainly not a good team. So Dallas has now had two questionable games in a row for me. The Vikings have looked questionable in certain games this season. And then you look at the 49ers. I know everybody's praising the quarterback play out of Brock Purdy. They have a really sound team, right? A good defensive front, good run game. But how much can you trust that guy in the playoffs? I'm just going to be honest here. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a really, really, really good shot here. All factors considered. All factors considered. I don't know any other team when the Eagles are on their game that can really come close to stopping this team on both sides of the ball. Because as much as we look at this offense, I feel like sometimes we forget the Eagles have the best defense in the league. Essentially, maybe a top 2, top 3 defense. I mean, we lead in sacks. We lead in takeaways. Like, this Eagles defense is special, man. They have a lot of playmakers, and they just continue to come up and generate pressure and cause turnovers. So I'm happy with how this Eagles team is playing. We have Wardell in here says, thank you, Jags. Marie says, fly, Eagles, fly. David says, glad I found Philly postgame. I don't have Philly TV station, so I never hear postgame news. Thank you for being here, David. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody who's in here as we try to continue to grow A to Z Philly. Really appreciate everybody being in here and giving your thoughts. Let me ask you guys this. How confident are we that the Eagles will clinch the number 1 seed next week? If the Eagles win next week in Dallas, the Philadelphia Eagles are the number 1 seed. And not only is that good because we have the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. We know the Link is a different beast come playoff time, but we get a first round bye. And I think that would be huge. We'll end up talking more about whether this Eagles team will be resting and how many weeks. I think at this point, if you clinch next week, it is a given that the Philadelphia Eagles will rest the final week of the season against the New York Giants. Who knows about the game against the Saints? You never know, right? Maybe we want to play that game, try to improve our own draft stock because the Saints own the rights to our draft pick. But you get that first round bye, it's looking a little bit different. You rest against the Giants. Maybe you rest that bye week. You have 2 weeks now, not just one. You have 2 weeks to kind of get everybody healthy. We know at this point in the season, guys are piling up with injuries and they're not feeling too well. Having 2 weeks could make the difference. How do we think this thing ends? Will the Eagles clinch next week in Dallas? My gut feeling says yes. Dallas had They had a good start today, but they blew a 17-point lead, and then they ended up losing in overtime. Dallas is not playing their best football right now. The Eagles, even though they struggled today, overall have been playing good football. The Eagles had scored 30 or more points in the last 6 games. They put up 25 today on what was maybe their worst performance of the season. This was maybe the worst or second worst performance of the Eagles season, and we still pull it out. We still put up 25 points, and we just end up, coming through in the big moments. So I think we clinch next week. I think we clinch next week. Lewis says win was good. Maryland says fly, Eagles fly. I love all the people coming through and just dropping a fly, Eagles fly. I love it, man. We are a great community here, great fan base, and I'm feeling good. We got Dizzle who says feeling pretty confident after that game. I hear you. I hear you. Dizzle says we have to clean up the mistakes, man. The play calling was frustrating. It was very frustrating. I'm sitting there drive after drive, and I'm just wondering, why do we keep throwing the ball 30 yards downfield? I mean, I would love to know. I don't have the statistic, but I would love to know how many plays were downfield for 30 plus yards today. I don't think I've ever seen the Eagles throw that many in one game. And again, I just feel like we tried to get ahead of ourselves a little bit. I felt like, we had all this confidence coming in. We are a dominating offense, a dominating team, and we're trying to put away a bad team. But again, you have to stay within your character, make it simple. Jalen Hurts played bad in the first half. The Eagles' play calling was out of this world bad. They come back in the second half. Jalen Hurts plays good. The Eagles, end up scoring points. I mean, people have been talking about whether Jalen Hurts is the MVP. I think he is, right? Jalen Hurts plays bad. The Eagles struggle. Jalen Hurts plays good. Eagles come out here and win the football game. So I'm happy with how he came out, man. We have Lewis who says, good show. First time here. Thank you, Lewis. Hope to see you back in more shows as well. Robert says, Eagles will do it. I love it. Margie says, Hurts. Mary says, Kenneth praying, continuing to win. Lewis says, let's take Dallas out. Ephraim says, fly, Eagles, fly. We have Demon says, fly, Eagles, fly. Let's go. Daniel Brown says, fly, Eagles, fly. Good win. And Lewis says, it was one of those games we would have lost last year, but this team is different. Exactly my point from earlier. This team has matured. Guys on this team have matured. Jalen Hurts has matured as not only a football player, but a leader in the locker room. Jalen Hurts is a guy that when times are tough, when you're down or when it's a 3 or 4 point game, everybody's looking around. They're looking at Jalen Hurts now. Go out there and win this football game for us. I don't know if you could say the same last year. And, he's poised, man. Somehow, some way, he makes it happen. We had a lot of third downs today. We had a lot of tough positions. Jalen Hurts finds a way, whether he's running it himself, taking a couple big hits, finding his guy, A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts seems to be making some really big plays in opportune times. And I was just overall happy with how he rebounded from that first half, because he could have kept that same mentality and went through the rest of this game. And, Eagles could have lost, and, it just would have been an ugly win. But you can learn, like the chat said, you can learn from this game and correct your mistakes. And at the same time, you have a win in the scoreboard. So I'm happy, man. I'm happy. Also have to give a shout out to Boston Scott. He goes under the radar much of the time. Today, he had a big play on special teams. And coming out of that second half, Boston Scott, ends up, or actually it was at the end of the first half, I believe. Boston Scott ended up having a huge return. He ended up with how many yards on special teams? Let's see. 92 yards today on 3 returns for Boston Scott. Special team seems to be getting better. That was an area of concern. Brett Kern today, first game as the Eagles punter. He had 2 punts for 90 yards. Jake Elliott ended up missing that 1 field goal. Of course, it's very, it's like meant to be kind of, right? We end up doinking it against the Chicago Bears. Obviously, we know the double doink. So I guess that was kind of poetic, but Jake Elliott ends up tailing one off. It hits off the field goal post. And, we were wearing at that point. Something I'm also wondering as well that I mentioned earlier, are the Eagles going to continue going for it on these 4th and longs? We see these 4th and 5s, 4th and 6, 4th and 7. The Eagles seem to always be content on going for it. I'm wondering if that will be the strategy heading into the playoffs as well, because Jake Elliott can hit some of these long field goals. Seems like sometimes we're just content on keeping the offense on the field. It seems like the nature of the game, I would say now, is kind of trending towards that. A lot of teams want to just keep going for it and try to move the chains, but I don't know. I find it a little bit interesting. I do find it a little bit interesting. We went for it, like I said, on a 4th and 6, and that was on the Chicago 33. You try to kick that, it's a 50-yard field goal. But no, you ended up trying to go for it. You don't get it. And that could have changed the game. That could have changed the game. Um, but yeah, the defense is the MVP of the game today. Even though Jalen Hurts stepped up, the defense got it done. You look at the Chicago receivers, Byron Pringle was their leading receiver. He had 39 yards and a touchdown. Montgomery out of the backfield, 38 yards. Other than that, nothing. Nothing at all. Justin Fields had 95 yards on the ground. But like I said, that was a little bit skewed with one big run. I thought they did a pretty good job at containing him. I thought, you know, I thought it would be much worse against Justin Fields, but the Eagles defense did a great job. They stayed within themselves and, they brought pressure. They brought more pressure today, so I was happy with that. Um, but yeah, Eagles get it done. Not a pretty win at all. Definitely an uglier game than we have typically seen, right? Like the last 5 weeks, we've been sitting back and we've been kind of just breathing happily, right? Just, let's get to the end of this game. We're up 15, we're up 20. This one was a little bit worrisome, but the Eagles still find a way, and that is what is most important. This Eagles team continues to find ways to win. I don't know if you can call them resilient because I don't know if they've been in that many situations where they've really been tested because they are that good. But overall, in totality as a football team, yeah, they are resilient, man. They are tough. They're tough. Even if this Eagles team goes down, even if they go down in the second quarter, in the third quarter, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if it's a very close game, it's tight, everything's on edge. Jalen Hurts just has a calm demeanor, and he just puts together a drive, 8-play drive, 10-play drive, 14-play drive, doesn't matter. It had a 19-play drive, goes down and, puts us in position to get points. And I don't know, man. I guess I can't be too mad. I mean, after the first half, everybody was pulling their hair out. Everybody was screaming. I've said this for years and years. I think the Eagles really underutilize Miles Sanders. I think he is a special player. I think he's talented. You draft a guy in the second round. Maybe it's just the Eagles' philosophy. I think that's what it is accredited to more. But if I'm Miles Sanders, let's be honest. I'm out there at halftime, and I'm saying, Coach, what is going on here? He had 3 carries at halftime, but in real time, when it mattered, he had what, like 1 carry in the first half. If I'm Miles Sanders, I'm coming into this game expecting more touches. Like I said, it's a cold day. It's not really, favorable to come out here throwing the ball 50 yards down the field. If I'm Miles Sanders, I'm saying, what is going on here? I am a 1,000-yard rusher in 14 games, in 13 games. I'm out here running every single week, gaining yards. I'm averaging 5 yards per carry. What is going on here? I think going forward, the Eagles need to stay within themselves because when you have a 1,000-yard rusher on your team and then you have the threat of Jalen Hurts running the ball, you can do so much as an offense. You can do so much as an offense. You cannot get one-dimensional. You cannot get one-dimensional. And that's something that needs to be cleaned up. We've seen this happen a few times before. I trust Shane Steichen to get it under control. But this can't happen in a playoff game. This can't happen against a really superior, lethal type of opponent. Obviously, the Eagles are the superior team, but going up against a better team than the Chicago Bears, who are 3-11, you can't do that. You can't come out in the first half and not run the ball at all. You have to stay balanced. So, nonetheless, Jalen Hurts, like I said, wins it on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns, and the most ever in an NFL season by a quarterback is actually 14 rushing touchdowns, and that was Cam Newton, and I think that was about 10 years ago. So now Jalen Hurts has a few games to play with, and all he needs is 1 more touchdown on the ground to tie and 2 more to go ahead. What he can do, man, is special. 61 yards. He's our leading rusher today. Hopefully Miles will get his touches next week and he'll get back into it, but you never know, man. You never know. But I think the Eagles will rebound from the way they played today, and I think they'll move forward and get it done in Dallas and clinch the number one seed. So, nonetheless, I you know I will just accredit this game to being one of those kind of weird games that teams have throughout a season. But part of it was us shooting ourselves in the foot in the first half. What do you guys think, though? Give me all of your thoughts down there in the chat. Once again, thank you all for being here. The Eagles get it done 25-20. What is your one main takeaway from the game? Let me know in the chat. Let's read some of these comments. Fear the Beard says, I'm glad we can win ugly games, not always going to have a perfect game. And that'll be important, because you get into a playoff game, it's probably not going to be a perfect game unless you just are on all, on all accounts of everything that day, right? If everything's working, sometimes that happens. And that's why it's interesting in the NFL playoffs, because it's one game, go home. One team can wake up on the wrong side of the bed. One team can be on it in every facet, and you never know. And that's why it is important, like you said, for the Eagles to be able to come out here and grit some of these games. Lewis says, I love the narrative that Fields could become like Jalen Hurts. Jalen has made a whole category in the NFL. Yes, he has. Yes, he has. He is taking this to a new height. It really is, man. With the defense they have, they can almost afford to do such things. Gerald says, hope on the Lucky Charm picked the last two Super Bowl winners. This year went with the Eagles and the division. What a day to keep it going. Handicapper and Lincoln calling the division. Let's go, Gerald. Let's go, Gerald. Gerald's out here predicting the future, man. I love it. I love it, man. Keep it coming. Mo says that was kind of a weird game, not going to lie. Robert says nail biter, but a win nonetheless. And I think that's the biggest storyline here. The Eagles get the win. Dallas loses, Eagles win, and now it's all set up for a big game in Dallas next week. And we'll really have a shot to show who's who. Next week will tell a lot of things. It will quiet a lot of people if the Eagles can come out on the road in a tough environment in a huge division game and finish it off. And that will just provide so much relief and comfort for this Eagles team as we head down to the playoffs. You have to get that number one seed. There is no excuse at this point. You have to get that number one seed, get the bye, and get the home field advantage. That would be huge. But we'll see how it plays out, man. We'll see how it plays out. That's really all I have, though. Eagles struggle mightily in the first half, and they rebound in the second half. They come out immediately, put up some points, and they never looked back. And now we are on to Dallas. We'll have video coverage throughout the week, just talking about the biggest storylines, the biggest points, any news that comes along. Obviously, we talked about the whole Micah Parsons comment thing and, how everybody seems to be downplaying the MVP status of Jalen Hurts. So I'm excited for him to go in there and kind of shut some of the haters up. So we will see how it all plays out. But Eagles get it done on the road in Chicago, 25-20. Once again, this is the A to Z Philly postgame show. Be sure to hit the like button wherever you are watching, YouTube, Facebook, and follow us on all platforms. We continue to grow. We'll continue to do these shows. It is going to be a huge week. Eagles and Cowboys. It's always a little bit better, man. It's always a little bit sweeter if you can beat that team. So I can't wait to see what happens. Can't wait to see what happens. Once again, I am RB. Thank you all for being here. And be sure to subscribe to the A to Z Philly YouTube channel, and we will keep you updated on all the content moving forward. With that being said, everybody have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.